Hello everybody, welcome back to Spruverse, my scale model universe, people of Earth. It's a brand new build on the bench today, and we are going to a 3D print. Now I can explain why, after bitching and moaning about, you know, resin and mixing stuff up and everything else, I picked up these STL files from Golden Armor. Christoph, really nice guy. If you haven't checked out Golden Armor, go check him out. He's got all kinds of fun stuff to look at, to purchase. He'll even swap with you, I think. I don't know. He's into props. He's into jewelry. He's into a lot of stuff. And so I was wandering around there one day, and I discovered that he had the Kraken from Innerspace, the 1987 Joe Dante movie starring Dennis Quaid, produced by Steven Spielberg. And I thought to myself, you know, that's unique. That's different. I like different. So I started printing. Well, it was at a moment in time where the printers, they didn't want to behave. I don't know. You know, leak, bad resin, broken FEP, broken screen, you name it, you name it. Well, anyway, things were coming out of the printer slowly, but over literally a course of several months, I was just having a really difficult time, and I would put it aside, and once in a while I'd get excited and go, you know, I'm going to try, and I would print a few things, and life would move on. Well, cut to, I would say about a month ago, I finally decided, you know what, I'm going to take an inventory of what's been printed. I'm going to try and print everything else, and I'm going to build this on the channel because I want this in my collection. And guess what? I'm done. It's printed. We're ready to go. And so I thought we would just open talking about some interesting stuff. It's a really nice hefty size. And the print quality is exceptional. The STL files were really strong files. And what I did appreciate, and I don't know enough to know about software, maybe some of you do out there in subscriber land who can help me, but when the STL files come from certain places, you can't click on it and see what the image is. It just won't open. At least that's true in the Mac world. Now I know a lot of you are going to say, well, why don't you junk Mac and you'll be fine. It's a little too late for me. I'm a Macaholic. But moving on. Anyway, I just greatly appreciate the fact that these files come in, and when you click on the individual file, you get an image of what you're printing. I really appreciate that. Makes my life a lot easier. So anyway, off I went, and we printed, and here we are. And so I wanted to start by let's jump in. Let's go over to no, that won't help you, will it? Hang on. Sorry about that. It's no fun to look at a black screen. Okay, so here's what we've got. This is a layout from, now I've pulled this from the Golden Armor website. And if you want to follow along, folks, it's one word, Golden, G-O-L-D-E-N, Armor, A-R-M-O-R.com, goldenarmor.com. Go check them out. Anyway, this is under Kraken. Here's what he's printed, and he's sort of showing you here a little bit about the files themselves and what you got to print. There's a video, and then you've got some really fun. Well, I think they're fun. Some really fun renderings. This is an artist's rendering of the front of the ship. Not a lot of color in this build, but we're going to play with that with some grays and some silvers, and we'll add our own sort of detail to it. But here you go with the front look. Here's a sort of side, well, not a side look, but a closer front look with some of the detail. So the harpoon, the winch, your thrusters, your articulation arms at the front there, all the kind of stuff, and it all comes with it. And then there are these wonderful sort of views of it. There's a wonderful quick video about the miniaturization chip, which you can print, and a few more detailed photos of what we're going to be tackling. A little bit of red, which I like, and some yellow on the tanks. I don't know whether those are hydrogen, oxygen. We'll have to, you know, just sort of make it up as we go along. But I really appreciate how much detail that they went into just to kind of go for it. Now, here's an interior look. Now, you do get Dennis Quaid. You can print him. You can choose to just leave it empty, or you can choose to have him in. I think for the purposes of this build, I'm going to have him. I have him. I'll show you him in a minute. He's well detailed. Lots of opportunity to light this thing, and I'll show you. Very detailed plans of how it all goes together. Some close-ups of the parts as they come out here, and just some really well thought through CAD drawings and designs here, showing you how all the pieces go together and where they go. Lots of details, lots and lots of details. Nice shots of the interior here, and you know, it makes it a real pleasure to really sort of go through it. I'm having soup today. Do you notice I just sort of shifted gears like that because I moved my cup of soup? It's California. It's the 19th of December as I record this, and it's pouring with rain. Awesome. Anyway, so here we are. Let's go overhead for a second, and each one of these squares. Well, let me pull my ruler out because maybe this will help you. But each one of these squares is actually 1 inch. So, and we're still in the dark ages here, I'm afraid. So I apologize. But if you look at it on the bench, you can see that in total it is approximately 9 inches at its widest, 8.5 at its narrowest in width, and it is about 10.5 to 11 inches in its length right there. And then when you drop in the shell, and everything goes together quite beautifully, we're sitting up proud at about 7 inches. It's a big boy. And here it is, sort of in its let me just, oh, I can hear things falling apart in there because it's nothing is sat down. But anyway, let me push that over there, and you can see. Oh, say hi to Dennis. Here he is in his sitting position. We'll look at him in a second. And here's the rear wall. You can see that's my soup. Okay, so lots of detail. Let me give it a spin. This is so you've got all kinds of detail work for the back here. You've got your top engines and your side thrusters, and then it sits on some skids, so it'll come up even higher. It'll probably come up to maybe 11 inches, something like that. Quite dramatic. But I'm really happy with it, and I think it's going to make a really fun model. And because these windows are so large, there's lots to see inside. So really impressed with the way this printed. I had some of this flesh-colored resin in. That's why some of these parts are in flesh. I just wanted to use the resin up. Want to show you some side panel details here, so that you can see the level of detail in this print. So this is on the right side of the cockpit. 3 screens, which we're going to light, and then you can see these little pinholes are all for fiber optics, so we can get everything flashing and you know, looking like it's alive. Lots of details, really crisp gauges and hosage. So we like hosage. So that's good. And then I'll show you the other side here. Lots of control surfaces to paint up, but lots of opportunity to get light going in here to really bring this to life. So and then we'll do a couple of cabin lights just for ambient light. But I think it'll be fun to get this all twinkling, which means, of course, it's got to go on a base, and we've got to drop a wire down into the base floor. But that's okay. That's the story of my lighting life. When I tell you, without exaggeration, I do not know. I haven't counted exactly how many pieces there are, but I'll venture to say there's close to 100, maybe more, pieces that have to be printed. Let's take a quick look at the figure. Here he is. Now, one could argue that it doesn't look an absolute bit like Dennis Quaid, and you'd be right. But, you know, that's okay. You know, when you look through the window at the finished model, I mean, how many people are going to go, you know, that does not look like Quaid. It just doesn't. A few will. I know who would. Uncle Lou. But anyway, it's really awesome. So, how do we begin? Well, everything has to get primed, and a few of the pieces still have to be sanded. When you print these behemoths, especially this piece here, which prints beautifully, and it's got some wonderful details on the underside. So we've got hoses and all kinds of detail. I've already made the windows. I cut some templates, and I had some clear acrylic, and I've made the 3 windows, so that's all good to go. Lots of detail. You could actually, I suppose, leave this so that it could pop off, and you can look on the inside. You know, I don't know. I'm 6 of one, half a dozen of the other with that, because I don't play with my models. I know when you go to all that trouble to put everything inside, it would be nice to be able to see everything. So, you know, I always struggle to figure out just exactly how much I'm going to leave exposed. But lots of opportunity too. Here's the rear wall. Everything is loose on this rear wall, but it sort of drops down. I'll show you here. This is the rear wall. So you've got all kinds of tanks and wires and stuff. Now what you don't get is any of that hosage. So we're going to have a lot of fun connecting everything, getting all these wires, and getting lots of stuff going on the back here. So it's full of gunk, and we'll age that down a little bit. We'll have a lot of fun with that. Let me pull the parts off for a second so I can stand this up inside the model, and we'll take a look at that. It just drops down in the back here. Now, really a nice tight fit. Let me move that for a second so that everything doesn't fall apart. But yeah, so there's your rear. So you can see that. It really is. It's really clean. And the one thing I will say is, you know, when you have a model maker who's actually involved in getting these files put together, you do get a slightly different result. Things do make a lot more sense, and they're a lot easier, you know, for us to put together so that we can paint them and do all kinds of nonsense like that. So I do appreciate it. Okay, I'm going to get a coat of paint on everything. And then I think what we'll do is we'll start some of the assembly. We'll do it in sections. We've got it's referred to as the lower part of the hull and all of that detail, and then there's the upper part of the hull. And some of the parts we can actually attach and we'll paint it as one, but a lot of it really needs, you need to get it all painted as individual pieces. So that's what we'll do. I'm going to get everything primed up, and then we'll start looking at a rough assembly so we can see how it all goes together, and then we'll talk about lighting. Here we go. Well, I'm fully committed to getting this lit, and there's quite a lot going on inside, but the windows are a pretty decent size, so we should be able to see a lot. I'm not going to leave it so that the top can be pulled because I need some ambient light coming from the top. So I'm going to need to attach some wires and run those, and it just becomes a problem with an umbilical cord. You can certainly do it. Smarter people than me can do it. It's not that complicated, but it does take a little additional stuff. And I'm just not a big fan of touching my models. It's just Murphy's Law. If I start messing with them after they're finished, something's going to snap or break, especially when you're trying to show it to someone. That's when it happens. Okay. I've been priming away, and so I've got a pretty decent, pretty sort of decent basic setup here that I'm happy with. And so that's here. And so what I'm doing now is I'm just working on the consoles that sit above these bottom pieces. Not a lot of color in here. There's some blacks, there's some aluminums, there's silvers. The chair itself is just basically raw paint. I haven't done any washes, dry brushed it, cleaned it, finished it up. Mr. Quaid takes up an awful lot of the chair, as you can see, so we're not going to end up seeing a whole lot, but I think it is worth doing. What I really love about this print is it's been designed for wiring. So there's chase openings here for your wires, and allows you to take it all the way to the back into this cubby here, and then you can go down and out, and that's what I'll do. So there's no drilling that has to be done. This was really well thought through, and I do appreciate that. So what I've been doing is I've been working on what to light, and I decided I was going to hit all the consoles. Now I've light blocked this this beautiful piece here, and what we're going to do with this is we've got some screens that I have, which I pulled from some old transparencies that I have for some other ships and screens. I can't remember whether it was from my hopper or whether it was from my EVA pod. But when Yay Monsters was up and running, I think that's where I got the transparencies from. Now, I know you can print your own transparencies. I've just never tried it. I certainly can print my own decals, but transparency I haven't done yet. But that's definitely something I need to look into, because it shouldn't be that difficult. So I'm definitely, that's where one of my skills needs to improve for sure. But the 3 screens we've got covered, and we will also, there's a couple of little blinky flashes green here to indicate some things are on, so we'll get those in. I've been working on the console that sits in front of Mr. Quaid, and that is this. What I've done is I've installed these little fiber optics into all the lights. Now they're all going to blink. They're not going to blink. They're just going to be on and green. Green really punches. You're not going to see an awful lot of it, but you're going to get, maybe a little peek at it if you look through the side window. But all the gauges will be painted. This will be dry brushed. It's basically black with some aluminums. Lots of detail stuff to do here. Lots of fun. In the rear, you get essentially you get two pieces. You get a left and a right, And what these do, these little armatures, what they do is they connect up with the yokes that are already cast into Mr. Quaid's hands. So the idea is that when he's sitting in front of his console like this, they'll come out from the sides, and it looks like he's driving the ship. Very cool. Now, to get light into here, I've put 3 Pico SMDs from Evans Lighting with this lovely thin wire. I've pushed it in, I've light blocked it, I've put a little bit, just a little bit of heat shrinking tubing, rubber tubing around that. So everything is in there and it's encased. I've tested it and all the lights go on. I'm going to leave these long until I've painted everything and dry brushed it, and then I'll trim them off. The next thing I'm doing here is I'm feeding these. Now these are all pre-resisted, which is wonderful, and they are pretty skinny, but you know, doing them one at a time as I've done here and pushing them through this hole in the back has allowed me to essentially put all this together. And then what I'm going to do now is I'm going to glue this yoke to this armature right here, and we should be good to go. So I'm just going to hit this with a little bit of glue in a second. We'll make sure it's all sort of squared up and the angle is correct, and then we'll glue that into place. So that's pretty cool. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to run these wires down the back here, and we'll paint these so that they disappear. And then these will die into the floor, and I'll run these to the back. And we'll do that when we're setting everything up. But that's basically what I'm doing there. Okay, so that's going to take care of the front yoke. And then over here, I've got this side panel which has an awful lot going on. I've got lots of blinkies and lots of lights. So I filled this full of fiber optic. It's all drying. I've got it all drying in the back here. So, and then we will couple everything together, and we'll get all of that lit. We'll figure out what we're going to do, because what I've got are plenty of opportunities to make these banks flash at different rates at different times, or I can leave them all on. But I think getting them flashing, well, some of them flashing is going to be a good thing. Now, the way I'm going to do that is I had one of Ralph Teneglia over at Tenor Controls. I had one of his old boards, and it's interesting because they've really, I don't know if this board is still available, but this was sold as a control console or computer panel light board, and it's model timer 8-A. Here, I'll show you the let me get there for you. There, that's what it is. So if you are interested in that, on getting that, I'm sure reach out to Ralph. I'm sure he's got an updated version of that or something far superior than what I'm using. But I had it in my stash, so I thought, why not? And this board is kind of cool. So you have 4 reds you can hook up, 2 yellows and 2 greens. And that's what I've done. And I've hooked up positive and negative here to these long leads, and it's all sort of testable here. So I'll show you what this looks like lit up. Okay, and here's all your blinkies. I'll put this in. Let's see here. Let's take a look at this. So Here are your reds. There's 4 reds. And you can see they're all random. It's a really nice controlled random nature to it, as well as the greens, and it's a nice pace too. It's not a crazy sort of neurotic flash like a strobe. It's you know, for a navigation light, it's a very mellow, very nice controlled light. Here's the other green, so you can see how they're just completely random. And I like how they just sort of do their thing. Very cool. And then I've got one yellow hooked up here, and that does its thing. So I will sort of figure out what's going on what, and I really only need it for, I think I only need it for this side. I think on the other side I'll just have the greens on. I think all the blinkies will be on this side. I think. You know me. I'll tell you one thing and then I'll do something else. That's okay. That's the fun of all of this, right? Okay, so that is Ralph's board all hooked up and ready to go. I may have to uncouple some of these things so that I can run them because the board will sit in the back, but the lights will come through and chase up. But at least, you know, with everything on, I know where everything is. I know where my reds are, my green, my 2 greens, and my yellow. So I will stick with that so that I don't get lost. Okay, so working on my fiber optic, getting everything light blocked. Then once everything is light blocked and I'm happy with it, and these are dried, I just want to make sure they're dry before I trim my optics right back. I'll hit this one more time with one more coat of black before I trim them, and then that way they'll be nice and clean. But I did have to drill out a few holes just to add some additional light. So that's all good, and that's all drying right now. So probably tomorrow I should be able to hit this with another black when it's all dry, and that will take care of all of the light that I'm working on for the consoles. Now, interestingly enough, this piece that I have here, this piece, get you closer, this piece goes above the center console and the main viewing glass right above Mr. Quaid's head. What I discovered on further investigation is that these are actually supposed to be lights. So I've got a couple of choices. I can either drill these out or just sand them down and put some SMDs there. That's one choice. Another choice would be to print this in clear and then get my little Pico chips into the back, and then those will all light up, and I can actually dim those. They don't have to be super bright. Now, the only thing is you don't see it. So once this shell, thank you for not breaking. I forgot I had done that. I have to stuff and think. Once the shell is on, now this is quite girthy, and I know a lot of you are going, Phil, leave it so you can lift it off and look inside. I know, but again, you know, not to belabor the point, it's just not who I am. You wouldn't want to display it that way. If I take this to Wonderfest, you wouldn't want to display it that way anyway. You're going to display it as it looks, you know. And what's going to be cool is if I can get some kind of a cool diorama where it's actually in the human body as opposed to just parked. I don't know, thinking about that. But let me flip this over and show you what I was talking about here. So here's where this part goes. It drops right in there like that. Now you've got these wonderful bolts, which you'll never see. You've got all this beautiful hosage that you'll never see. You might see a little bit of it, but you're not going to see all of it. And we've got some control panels here, and then of course you've got your back piece. But I'm just sort of concentrating on this element here, and I'm thinking that it will be easier for me to just glue in some SMDs into those, mark those positions, and then just run some cable along the back, run some cable along the side here, and then have it die into all this cable, and then have it go round and down the back, and then I can get that lit. And what that will do is it will put some light on above his head, and that should look pretty cool. I do have to be careful though about brightness, because if those are too bright, it's going to wash everything out, and then everything else interior doesn't make a lot of sense. Now, one of the other things I've thought about, which I may end up doing, is actually getting some soft yellows above there, not white, some soft yellows, and put a resistor on there that makes them dim. And then what I can do is I only need 1 or 2 of them, maybe 3 at the most, and that I think will really help create an atmosphere inside. I'm going to have some red light, because there was a lot of red washed light on this set. But I do want to be able to see all the blinkies. Now it's going to be quite dark in there, and once everything turns on, you should see that it's alive and there's some action going on. So that should be pretty cool. There are no lights on the exterior of this thing except floodlights. There are 3, 5, I think there are 7, maybe 9 floodlights that I've got to work on. And they've all got to run into the back of this thing as well somehow, and then they've got to, it's all got to hook up. I think this might be one of those where I have to figure out whether 9 volts is going to be enough to run everything, or whether I need to run it off of a transformer so I don't have any issues. I've got a lot of I've got a lot going on here, and the one thing with these blinkies is, they don't go through a board, so they suck an awful lot of power up. Now, Ralph's board is good for 5 to 9 volts, so I should be fine. Okay. So that's basically the lighting plan. I'll show you the exterior floods when we get to them. I did the hopper, the Pegasus hopper, a couple of years ago. So I went into detail about floodlights there, and then on my ET mothership I put lights in all of the cans. So I've done that an awful lot on the channel, but I'm going to show you it here just because it's an important part of the build since we're lighting this ship. I'm not going to have any of the motors turning. I'm just not. Now, interestingly enough, there is a version of this ship that I know my dear friend Jeff Fink has been quietly working on, and we did some experimentation, and you can absolutely get these motors to run. At least on the version that he is designing, but on this particular version, I just didn't want to go to the trouble of drilling and motors. And if any of you have been following me for a while, you'll know if I start to get a little too complicated with my wiring and my gizmos, it's just a tragedy. It just ends up being a tragedy. I don't know why, it just does. Okay, so in the next segment, we will have put a little more color on this. We will get Mr. Quaid all painted up and pretty, and we'll start to detail the interior, because I'm going to work on the interior and then work my way to the outside. Once this interior is in and we start to go to paint, there's not a lot on this palette for the exterior either. But I am going to put some washes on it and dirty some things down, and we may even use a little bit of foil, gold foil. I think that might look fun on the inside, and of course some of my metal tape that's a go-to for me. We'll definitely be using some of that for detail work. Okay, so I will show you my progress in the next update. Well, I've been making progress. I've been doing painting, and I've got a little bit to show you. And I sort of like where I'm going. It's interesting. From all of the production stills, there's not a lot of good quality photos. And you know, I'm a big proponent of, you know, you try to do the best you can, but you can also use the colors you want. You know, this is your model. You know how I feel about that sort of thing. But sometimes just to give you some direction and some feel. But you know, this whole thing is metals. It's aluminums and grays and different kinds and colors of metal. It's really interesting. So I've got a whole bunch of different colors on the bench. I mostly went for Vallejo's metal colors for the airbrush. So I've got this really cool color here, which is their white aluminum. It's the 77706, which I like. And then I pulled a bunch of different ones. I've got something called duraluminum, which is, it's a little brighter. So I've got that. It's all the same range. That's the 7702. And then here's the 7716. This is semi-matte aluminum. Now they're all different colors, so I should get different variations. And I went for the steel, which is a really, I think that'll really be good for some of the tanks and stuff like that. There's not a lot of color on here, so I've taken some liberty. For the oxygen tank that sits behind Mr. Quaid, as we're calling him, I just got this in a it's called bright blue. Now we're going to add some detail to this, some steel to the top, black to the knob, steel to the straps, and then we'll hit it with some matte just to kill it, because it looks a little bit like a toy, but it won't when it's finished. Interestingly enough, in this light, it's got, to me, you know, it does look a little purple, but I say nay, it is not purple, it is blue, and it will be blue. But anyway, it sits behind his chair just to get a little bit of color in there. There's some hosage that comes out of that. Lots of hosage in this thing, which I love. I love gack, and so that's all good. Wanted to jump in because I started to regret lighting this because you go down a rabbit hole to try and get things blinking and looking like they're coming alive. You know, you've got a myriad of ways to do this. You could stick a whole bunch of fiber optics in here, stick a white, you know, a white tape, a white SMD, SMD tape in there, and just put some aluminum tape back there for bounce, turn it on, and Bob's your uncle, you know. And but it wants to be lit, and I've dry brushed this. Just I haven't done any visual finishes yet to it, but I just got some dry brushing on here, and I've noticed I'm a little weird here, but we'll clean that up. But I just wanted to show you how that pops and how that's starting to look alive. I'm going to hit each one of these individual switches with different colors, and the knobs will go black. You know, just leave a little bit of silver. I'm liking the silver around the rings. That's really punched the gauges, so I'm liking that. I don't know if I'll go to white on those. I may. But the point is that it really starts to look industrial, and it's coming along. So I just did that very quickly. That's not how it's going to look. But I just wanted to get some color on there and see. Also, it helps me sort of see where I need to put some color, and so that's a good thing. In the back, what I'm doing is I'm adding a red and a green blinky from my, well, it's going to be attached to my tenor controls board. We looked at that already. And then I've also got these 5mm whites. I've got 2 of those I'm threading through, and they're gonna hit the rest of the fiber optics that I'm not putting inside my fiber optic channels. The reason why is because some of the fiber optic that I have, it's not the best, and it can be a little brittle. You're probably wondering what I'm doing. I'm sorry, let me get you closer. What I'm doing is I'm feeding my 2 whites that are going to pick up the rest of my lights through this one hole. Now, this is what we were talking about the other day. These SMD files are quite something, I have to say. And to have pre-built drilled holes for you, knowing that everything needs to be fed through to the back, is quite something. It really is. And I say that with huge admiration. I really do, because, you know, it just really makes life a lot easier when you don't have to start drilling into things, especially 3D resin, because sometimes it can act really wonky, and it can crack. It is pretty stable, but not super stable, you know. And it's interesting. You know, I was reading this article the other day about 3D printers, actually, and this was a query about whether or not you should actually subject your prints after you've washed them and let them dry, whether you should subject them to UV light. Now, regular sunlight will cure them for sure, but I did think that that was very interesting, that somebody had done an experiment and determined that it didn't make a difference. I'm not schooled enough to know whether or not that's a fact or not. I'm just sharing useless information with you, because that's what you get on this channel. Marginal modeling advice. Okay, so I have a light in here for, this is a 5mm, which is going to go to these little beauties over here. And let me actually punch that with a flashlight for you so you can see what I'm talking about. Those are those. And those I can actually, if I want to, I can actually, and probably will, hit these with just a little bit of my Tamiya clear, just to give them some color. Otherwise they're all white and they look a little boring. But everything else is looking pretty good. So super happy with that. I'm going to use these little sleeves now. This is a rubber tube that you can get from Evans Design for fiber optics. The reason why I like it is because what I've discovered, and you know, you're all sitting there going, rolling your eyes and going, wow, really? You didn't know? I say, no. A lot of you don't believe me when I tell you I'm learning. I genuinely come to this bench every day and try to figure stuff out. Now, yeah, there's stuff I've improved upon, and I feel I'm a hell of a lot better modeler than I was a year ago, but I'm still learning. And what I have realized, because in the past I've used, with a modicum of success, I've used my shrink tubing for electrics to do small things. But I found that if the bulb itself isn't hitting directly over the optics, you do lose punch. And also, because this keeps them completely dark, you do not run the risk of light leak. And so any light that's in the chamber is going to find that fiber optic. So that's why these thick walls are really good. And I will cap them off with some of my some Cool Shot, some glue from my Cool Shot, and then I'll just hit those with a little bit of the black masking, not masking, liquid electrical tape, and they'll be perfect. That'll be a perfect seal, and then I don't have to worry about light leaks, and I should get a pretty nice response. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to clean all this up, get it all put together, and then we will take a look at that. But before I move on to the next segment, I just did want to show you this. So what I've got here is I've got the top of it, and what I've done is I've been using my Vallejo rattle cans. Now I've got a rattle can shaker, and I've showed this off to you before. So I don't have it in front of me, but I've got a rattle can shaker, and it works. I promise you it works. Now they're not cheap. I paid like 40 bucks on Amazon for it. There's a couple of versions of it, but I'm telling you it works. And the reason why I am so passionate about this thing, and nobody pays me to say this, is that if you don't get those rattle cans perfectly shaken, that's Swedish, you don't get an even distribution of paint, and you don't get the correct color. Well, I have shaken, I've got the Vallejo colors. They're in the fantasy range, and I've got a gunmetal, and I've got a gray. And I shook those on the machine, and boy, what a beautiful misting you get. You get a perfect coverage. So I hit this with the metal first, the gunmetal in the fantasy range, and then I gave it a dusting of the gray. And what you get is this wonderful, you get this wonderful looking aluminum. And you can see that it does have a metallic quality to it. Now, we're going to be doing an awful lot more to this, and you can imagine once all the GEC and the engines are on this, you're not going to see as much as you do here. But I am very happy with that color as a base color for the exterior of my KRAKEN II. So that was fun. It's fun when you can blend paint together and you get these wonderful, you create something really, really wonderful. And because I'm using all these other metal colors from Vallejo, I should get a really nice blending of color, and everything is compatible. So that's a first for me. And I think hopefully by the time all the GAC is on and all the different hosages, we'll pick up the various different metals, because that's what I see on the production stills. You know, I see it all in those tones. So lots of fun. Anyway, I'm very, very happy with this. I think this is, as we say, a result. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to get my control panels all finished off. I've got my other one drying, and then I need to get some light behind there, and I need to get my screens in before I close that up. I've got to remember to put my screens in before I close that up, because trust me when I tell you, you're looking at somebody who's very capable of closing that up and not putting the screens in. Very capable. Okay, so progress. I'm continuing to work on all kinds of different things. I have got the green light hooked up to the control yoke, which sits in front of him. Here's that edge, and I'll trim off these fiber optic lights, give this a nice dry brushing with my metals, and then that will be good to go. And the obviously the light, the wire, I couldn't think of what it is. It's a wire. It's definitely a wire. Will completely disappear in the back here, and you won't see that at all. So very happy with that. Okay, progress. I love progress. So we'll continue to work on color, work on the lighting system, and then of course once we get some of these things closed up and we know everything is working properly, we'll start picking out colors, because As I mentioned earlier on, I'm going to work from the inside out. And so I need to get everything finished on the inside before I start working on the outside. And it should go pretty fast once I get to the outside. And then we just have to figure out how we're going to display this thing. Don't know. Lots to think about, lots to talk about. Okay, I'm going to do one more quick segment on this part one, I think, and then we'll call it, because otherwise, you know, it goes on for eternity. But lots of progress. Okay, so one more segment, and I'll give you my last progress report, and then we'll call it for this particular update. It's been a hectic few days. As you guys know, I don't give you day 1, day 2, day 3 on the builds. You can all see from the changing clothes and haircuts once in a while and everything else that time has moved on. We don't need to know that. Lots of fun. I've been trying to put in some serious family time as well as continue on the Kraken, because it's been a lot of fun to dive in. I'm on the back wall, and I have the basic shapes in. These look like either oxygen tanks, or they could be some kind of a gas. Definitely another gas here, in obviously what looks like more gas or some kind of power conversion energy pack on the back wall. Anyway, the shapes are basically in. Rather than painting these straps, I thought it would be fun to add a little texture and a little bit of a different color, and so I used my copper tape, and I've just blended these in with a Q-tip, and there looks, nothing is nailed down yet, because what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take three or four different types of silvers and aluminums, and I'm going to do a basic sort of stippling brushing here, just to break up the back of this wall. Now most of it is going to be gacked up anyway, so you're not going to see an awful lot of it, but I just thought if I don't add some color or some texture to it, it's going to make me nuts. And then I have to go in with all of my different hosage and attach my hoses and connect them up. Now I don't know if I'm going to drill into the back here and have them disappear in the back. Maybe one or two will, and the rest will probably go up somehow and die either in the bottom or in the top of this wall. Haven't decided yet. So that's the next step for the rear wall, and then obviously I'm going to come forward into the overall cockpit itself, and then we'll start working on the outside. I've done an awful lot. I've got the yoke ready to go, and it's lit, so that, and it's working. I've got it's interesting, I've got this sort of handlebar element. Now there's no indication of where it goes, but I think it sits above the console. I'll double check, but I think this little puppy here does sit above the console, something like that, I think. So I'll double check. There is a frame grab that will allow me to do that, but those are good to go. The screens are good to go, and my control surface on the other side are good to go. Here's what that is looking like. Now I've not put any washes on this, and I have not cleaned this up yet. So don't worry about that. It's I was just playing with a little bit of color, and now I've got to sort of pull all this down and blend it in, which I'm going to do now. I've got a little bit of solar res in my lenses on my dials, and that does make a difference. And there is a whole bunch of fiber optic in here. You can see from the back, just to, you know, and they'll sort of be buzzing and alive. And I've got a couple of green lights that I've put in for fiber optic, actually, at the bottom here. Just trimming that because I noticed it was a little proud. Okay, so that is all good to go. Lots of details to do, but what I want to do now is I'm just going to take a minute and do a sub-assembly just to give you an overall sort of feel of where we are and what it's looking like, and then I think that will be it for this update, because I'm not gonna put an hour or 2 hours of content up on one show anymore, because even though a lot of you like that, I just feel like it's not fair to the content, because most of it gets skipped through. Yes, it does. You know it does. Love you all. Let me put it all together, and we'll take a look at where we are. Okay, hang around. Okay, I really like all the elements of this kit. It's an awful lot of parts to print, but it sure is a fun model, and it is beautifully designed, and it goes together really well. One of the things that I do appreciate, and I think I can point this out in the overhead shot here, is if you see these wires, there's actually if I turn this to camera, there's actually a chase line for it, which I really appreciate. It's all pre-cut, and it'll drop beautifully into this chamber in the back here. And so everything can sit in the back and be concealed. The only thing I haven't figured out quite yet is how I'm bringing power to this, whether I'm going to do it with a 9-volt or whether I'm just going to do it with a plug-in. I think I'm going to do it with a plug-in, only because the amount of power I need for some of these elements. And then, of course, here is the top. Now, I have not had an opportunity to put the engines in. I apologize. We will do that on the next update, but I just wanted to show you how beautifully this all sort of plugs and plays. And we've got a hatch handle there. I've cut some glass for this, so the only thing it's missing is its engines. But I think you're starting to see this really take shape. Lots to do. But I just really appreciate the scope and the scale of this, and it's been really fun to finally be able to put this together. Only because I've been printing for a while, operator error and all kinds of things, time, traveling, you know, you get fickle 3D printers, but definitely. Now, I am in the next update also going to be talking about a potential, I haven't locked it down yet, but potentially I have found somebody who will print files for you. And we're working on what that, you know, sort of the logistics of all of that, and how you would order those files printed for you as a kit. Haven't quite gone through all that, but I'm hoping I'll have some more information for you on that in the next update. Because I think for those of you who don't have the ability to print, but you'd like to build this, I think now there may be an opportunity for you to do that, at least for somebody that I know, and can hopefully verify that it all works. So, but I'm working on it. Hopefully, as I said, I'll have something for you. Okay, I'm going to continue to work on this. I think that'll do it for this update. In the next segment, we will have finished our back wall, got all our gack on. I'm going to be working on washes and that sort of a thing. Then we'll start working on final details for the interior, as well as starting to work outside and looking at final paint. And then we also have to decide, you know, how we're going to display this. What is this going to go on? Is it going to be in some kind of a on some kind of an angle in a you know, inside the human body, as it were, or is it just going to be sitting prior to its being miniaturized? Don't know, haven't quite figured that out, but we certainly will. We certainly will. Hey, if you want to drop me a line, I'm spruverse@gmail.com. You can follow my In the Weeds posts on Instagram. Usually every day I'm either posting a photo or two of what I'm working on the bench so you can see in detail on a daily basis, or I'm posting something stupid and useless, which is usually me. But hey, you know, and again, please don't forget, if you have just discovered me and you like my content, I would greatly appreciate it if you'd give me a thumbs up and click that subscribe button. It means an awful lot to me. As always, I wish all of you, please, be safe, be well, build something. Come on, build something. And I'll see you on the next update. Take care, everybody. Be well.